LaxFactor podcast. What is up, lacrosse fans? You are watching another episode of the LaxFactor podcast. I'm your host, Ted Hoost, and today we are going to talk about three things. We're going to talk about Rob Pannell leaving the MLL to join the PLL, as it's being reported. We're going to talk about Michael Sowers and why I think he is the best player in the country, but he will still not win the Tewaarton Award. And we'll talk about another Ask Ted question, this time pertaining to the crease and the new crease dive rules and all of that good stuff. Before I get into it, though, be sure, as always, to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and that's the best way that you can help promote our channel and help us grow. Or if you have want to do a little bit more, you can go to LaxFactor.com, watch all these videos there. If you're listening to this, you're only watching segment 1 right now if you're hearing me say these words. So the full podcast audio version is put up on LaxFactor.com. You can listen to it in its entirety instead of listening to it or watching it via piecemeal on YouTube. So let's get into this. The news that Rob Pannell is leaving the MLL to join the PLL next season. The first place I actually saw this was on Lacrosse Bucket. My buddy Tanner over at lacrossebucket.com. And New York Lizards star attackman Rob Pannell will be leaving Major League Lacrosse and joining the Premier Lacrosse League, who just finished their inaugural season. Dave Franklin first reported the news on Twitter on Saturday night. That's all per Tanner over at Lacrosse Bucket. So I've predicted this was going to happen. A lot of people have predicted this was going to happen. The day that Paul Rabel got into his head that he was sick of the MLL and they were going to start their own pro lacrosse league, that was the day that the MLL, started its nosedive into oblivion. I'm not saying I want to see that, because the reality is that right now there is a boatload of places that lacrosse players after college can play pro lacrosse and continue their lacrosse careers, and it's all high quality. The MLL put out a very good product despite losing a ton of their star power. So I'm not saying I want to see the demise of the MLL, but the writing was on the wall when the PLL came out. And then the writing was on the wall the way the PLL performed. Ticket sales were not, I think, what they had hoped, but I believe that they overperformed in terms of the product that they put on TV and the eyeballs that they gained between TV and then social media mentions and all of that stuff. So I think the PLL is the future. Why wouldn't Rob Pannell want to travel every weekend with all of his friends and his homeboys? The reality being, right now, he hops on a plane and a couple of people are flying to where he's going to play the game that weekend. With the PLL, he's hopping on a plane and almost guaranteed there's 5 to 10 other players from all the other teams, and all these guys are friendly, all sitting on that plane, trash talking together. It's someone else had asked, what about Lyle Thompson? I would presume that Lyle Thompson is next. So I would think that he's going, as soon as his contract is up and he's able, he will too be joining the PLL. I feel like all of the big pimp daddy stars are eventually going to ditch the MLL for the PLL, because, you don't get over having to dress in a outside of a high school locker room, because you can't even get into the locker room at the high school field, and you're dressing like this is club ball behind the stadium. You don't get over that when that's supposed to be pro lacrosse. So the reality, it is just a matter of time before the MLL either gets bought out by the PLL or just straight up folds. And I think that the NLL, the National Lacrosse League, they're announcing expansion, and they've been doing great for years. So it's telling that the MLL was just poorly run, poorly managed. I think that the big thing, and here's the big difference: you go to an NLL game and beers are flowing. It is an adult event, and adults with money go to the event. You go to the MLL games, and not that I didn't drink beer, but the marketing is different. The NLL embraces all of the good, the bad, and the ugly about the sport of lacrosse, right down to the good, the bad, and the ugly about the fandom. Now, let's not get into the issue that the Thompsons had. More specifically, I think it was Lyle had last year in Philly. That was gross and disgusting, and there's no place for it in the sport. But there is a place in the sport for fans, being dicks to opposing teams as they come in, just not being racist assholes. So that's, I think, why the NLL has always done better. It's a fan-based sport, not a kid-based marketing effort, and I feel like the MLL was always a kid-based marketing. Maybe that was just a matter of they couldn't get people to come to the games, so to get people in the seats, it ended up being, hey, we just got to get droves of kids to come in on buses. That could have been what it was all about, and that's actually one of my gripes with the PLL, is I think the PLL initially I felt that it was maybe going to make that same mistake in marketing to the kids. But the reality is, with those broadcasts and the live streams and the cussing and the swearing, I say it was awesome. Some purists thought it was terrible, but the reality is, market the sport to adults, not to kids, because the adults have the tickets and the adults will eventually bring the kids. But anyway, I think that the PLL is the future. I think the MLL is sunk. I think that one by one over the next year or two, if the MLL can even make it another 2 years, I think the reality is that you're going to see more players ditching, more big names, more importantly than that, ditching. So Rob Pannell reportedly leaving the MLL to join the PLL next season. He is just the first among many that are going to probably announce this over the course of the next year and 2 years, and that's going to be the demise of the MLL. Again, not hoping for it. The MLL puts a quality product in the field. It's just been a poorly run league from the beginning, and I think the players will do a better job managing their own league with the leadership they've chosen.